For those of you who don't know me yet, I am the founder of Clickable Vietnam, which is a marketing communications consulting firm in Hanoi. Up until 2012, I was a vice president management supervisor at Kramer Krasselt, which is a rather legendary independent advertising agency in Chicago, probably best known for its iconic Corona beer advertising, although Corona beer isn't the best brand to be talking about these days. So after moving to Vietnam in 2012, I spent some time as an independent consultant. I was a strategy consultant to a Saigon-based ad agency called NTM. I was digital marketing lead for Microsoft Vietnam, and then I founded this current company. A little bit about Clickable Vietnam. Clickable, as I mentioned, is a marketing communications consulting firm. We started out offering sort of a full suite of integrated marketing communications services, but over time we've specialized, and now we do a lot of our business in the development sector. And quite a lot of that is for ADB, the Asian Development Bank. Recently helped them design and launch something called ADB Ventures, which is the Asian Development Bank's first venture fund for startups. So it's a really exciting work there. We also have a sideline business where we do marketing communications consulting for tourism and hospitality. And some of you are very familiar. I see some people on the call who are very familiar with that side of our company. At one time, we had as many as 30 people on our team. Now we have about 10, which is, I think, a good number to have during this COVID-19 crisis. I want to share, though, what I'm not, because I think it's important for you to know what I'm not. I'm not an HR consultant. I'm not an expert in organizational psychology. I'm not even an operations expert. I'm just one CEO of one marketing communications company that I think has been pretty resilient during this COVID-19 crisis. Apparently, the folks at CoXplore agree, or I wouldn't have been invited to speak here today. But please take what I say with a grain of salt. Every organization is just a collection of individuals, and individuals are unique. So I hope I can offer some useful lessons and ideas, but your experiences might be a bit different. So I want to go through 10 or 15 things that I think you need to keep in mind as you manage your business, no matter how new or how old, during this current COVID-19 crisis, because as we know, everything has been turned on its head. And until today in Hanoi, we had spent 3 weeks locked down, unable to go into our offices, unable to see our colleagues, not even able to visit with family and friends. And so the first thing I want to urge you to take the time to do during this time, even though we're out of lockdown here in Hanoi, and I'm sure many other places it's going to be the same soon, this is the right time to rethink your strategy. Now look, there's no doubt that this is going to be a hard time for a lot of people. If you're an investor or an entrepreneur who's put a lot of money into what we call bricks and mortar businesses that occupy real estate somewhere, businesses like real estate or hospitality or traditional retail, you've already been through a lot of pain. And unfortunately, I doubt that it's over. And even after the worst of COVID-19 is over, it's going to take a long time for customers to have the money and desire to spend and behave like they used to spend and behave. Some of their behavior may never come back. Some of the changes that we're seeing right now may be permanent. There are a lot of businesses that, as we've learned over the last few weeks, just don't use space efficiently. Most offices don't use space efficiently. It's really interesting, actually, offices, if you think about it. I don't think we ever thought about it before now, but offices, their employees leave their 30 square meter, 50 square meter, 100 square meters, sometimes 200 square meter homes for 9 hours every day to go to another building to occupy another 10 or 15 square meters on average per person in an office. I think ourselves now, how many of those people really need to be in the office? How many of them could have worked just as efficiently from home? We've now seen the potential for a new way of working. And whether you enjoy working from home or don't enjoy working from home, I guarantee you that a lot of employers, a lot of bosses are seriously thinking about investing in less office space. Another industry that I think is in for big and possibly permanent changes is retail, grocery stores, that sort of thing. The way that we do retail, if you think about it, is horribly inefficient, and it's been inefficient for a long time. You get these small stores that have to invest in premium locations, and that costs a lot of money. And then their customers have to leave their comfortable homes to go shopping. That's not an efficient transaction for either the seller or the buyer. And we've known this not just for years, but for decades. Now, it's hard to change consumer behavior. People are used to leaving their homes and going to the store. But we have 3 weeks of practice now, more than 3 weeks of practice with a new way of behaving. And I think that there's going to be a growing demand for e-commerce, for online businesses, for home delivery. Even restaurants, there's always going to be a place in the market for an amazing dining experience that combines food and space and service. But sometimes food is just food. And restaurants need to take a hard look at their businesses and consider whether they could operate more efficiently as cloud kitchens and delivery businesses, or whether they need their own dining room, or whether they could join together with other restaurants in food halls with shared dining rooms, rather than renting their own storefronts. I think in one of the posts promoting this workshop, somebody said I was going to be talking about market research. And I'm not really going to be talking about market research, but I will say this. If you're in a retail business, if you're in the food and beverage industry, you've just done 3 weeks of market research. You have a good sense now of whether you can make sales as a cloud kitchen or a delivery business and not as a brick and mortar business. And I think that this is a good time to look at those sales that you've made over the last week, look at your costs, so drill into your profit and loss statements, and consider a change of business model. Again, there's always going to be a place for that great restaurant with that great ambiance, but a lot of us can do it a different way, a lot more profitably. So I predict that there's going to be a blossoming of e-commerce right now and delivery businesses and marketplaces. And you need to decide if you want to be part of that trend or if bricks and mortar is really the way to go. There's also going to be new opportunities created out of the crisis. If I were you and I were entrepreneurial, I'd look at the industries that have been destroyed, ravaged by the crisis. I do a lot of work with tourism, and tourism is one of those. No business has been hit harder than tourism right now. Tour companies, hotels, cruise lines, airlines, they're devastated. They're facing a lot of pain. A lot of them are going to go out of business. And if you're invested in that industry and you were hanging by a financial thread before the crisis, you're probably dead already. But if you were thinking about starting a business in tourism and you hadn't yet, this is your chance. This is your chance to get in at the ground floor when suddenly the competitive environment looks a lot less threatening. So, so this is going to be an interesting time. This is going to be a time for us to sort of lick our wounds and recover from the pain of this crisis, but also start new things, rise like a phoenix from it. And the only thing that I would urge you to do is, as you're creating new business models, think about how to be more resilient. Because until there's a vaccine, we're not finished with COVID-19. And even when we are, there will be other pandemics, natural disasters. There may be political crises down the road in some places. There's all sorts of business risks that we face every day, but don't often think about until it's too late. And this is our chance to really reflect on that and how to avoid them. Now, one of the ways to do that for a lot of businesses is to manage their business mostly remotely, because real estate space is a huge cost. And we're learning that that cost often isn't necessary. So that is what I want to spend the rest of our time on today, talking about how I've learned, mostly in the last few weeks, to manage a business remotely to be effective as an organization. So the next lesson I want to share is it's so important to get buy-in and shared ownership. You may think that your business can operate remotely, and you may have a model in mind for how you can do that. But if you're the business owner, if you're the big boss, you have to understand that people don't like change. People don't like change. I've tried to implement changes in my organization, not necessarily during the COVID-19 crisis, but in the past, where I've just met a brick wall. I may be the boss. People may be a little bit afraid of me sometimes, but I just one man, and even if you're that leader, you don't have the ability to make change on your own. You need to inspire change. You need people to go along with it. The best way to get them to go along with it is to make them feel like they're co-creators, co-architects. Quick story of failure, actually. So I think Hung mentioned that in addition to leading Clickable Vietnam, I'm really intensively engaged in a consultancy right now for ADB Ventures, this new venture fund under the Asian Development Bank. So we're part of a team. We meet every day. And one of the things I was asked to do, because we use Microsoft Teams as our chat and collaboration app in Clickable Vietnam, I was asked to implement Microsoft Teams within the ADB Ventures team. And this was a disaster, right? I led, no one followed. So we just sort of announced by email one day, we're going to be using Microsoft Teams. Everybody join in, start talking on it. I kept trying to start conversations and tagging people on Teams to get them to join the conversation. Nothing happened because people don't like change, and because there wasn't enough groundwork laid to get people to make that change, and not enough people were involved in the decision to make that change. Now imagine if I'd gone individual to individual in that organization and asked for their advice and incorporated their ideas about how to use Microsoft Teams. I know for a fact it would have worked, because the exact same organization later adopted a different tool called Asana, which is a competitor to Microsoft Teams. It caught on slowly, but there was a lot of time spent, maybe 2 months of time spent before they implemented Asana, talking about what it could do, giving what seemed like repetitive presentations about how we were going to be using Asana. So by the time it caught on, everybody kind of felt like they were part of it. And a lot of people felt like they had provided their inputs into the implementation, and it's been reasonably successful. So if I had done that with Teams, maybe we would be using Microsoft Teams today. So be sure to get buy-in and shared ownership, and then lead by example. You've got to be, as the leader, the first person in there. You need to be the most enthusiastic adopter of the tool. This is hard, because I think we all know that when it comes to technology, the youngest people on the team are often the most enthusiastic about it, and the people that learn the technology the quickest. Those of us who are old, like me, who have been working one way for 20 or 25 years, we find change hard. But if you're the leader, no matter how old you are, you've got to be the biggest cheerleader for those tools. You need to show that you're using it, that you're working through the challenges of it, you're incorporating it into your workflow. Because if not, nobody else is going to use it. You've got to be the one who's saying, hey, look, this is an interesting email chain, but why don't we have this conversation on Teams or Asana or Slack instead of doing it via email? You've got to be the one.